Hi, and a very warm welcome to the Dare Act Conversation series powered by the Grey Matter. Our guest joining today is Diksha Singh. Diksha is a banking and finance lawyer turned legal tech content creator, and she's also the editorial lead at Nyay. So, allow me to invite Diksha and let's learn about her journey of moving away from the practice of law to finding her niche. Diksha sent you a request. Okay, I don't see her live. Give me a second. Tanisha, can you just let Diksha know we're live? Oh, yay!
Hi. Hi. Sorry.
Hi, welcome to Dare Act. How are you doing
Thank
today?
you. I'm good. How are you?
Very well. I'm surprised. I just couldn't see you live. So I was sending an
Oh,
invite and I was like, am I sending, is she even there? Because for some reason it was not showing on the list. But
oh,
I'm
that's
glad
good.
you appeared. So,
Sorry for the confusion.
no problem at all. So, Diksha, your father was a lawyer and held very high regard for the legal practice himself. So, do you think that has influenced your career decision in any way?
In a very large way, actually. I wouldn't have ended up in law school if it hadn't been for how my dad feels about the law, because he ended up as a civil servant, but he studied the law, and he felt that that made a huge impact on the way he approached everything in work, even not as a lawyer. And because he valued that so much, he thought that it's great for even us to have that kind of training. And so even though I actually wanted to be a journalist, uh, but because he felt so strongly about the law after class 12, anyway, you're encouraged to sort of keep your options open. So I gave entrance exams for journalism, but I also gave all the law school entrance exams. At that time, we didn't have CLAT. And I got through NLS and the other national law school. But once NLS happened, it was a foregone conclusion. It's like, that's where you're going. So
Correct. So, both you and your sibling both have done their law?
we are both done. Yeah, my sister is a year elder to me, and she did her law from the Bhopal National Law University, and I did it from law school. And both of us found our ways to things which are not conventional law careers, but yeah, we both have the training, which is pretty much, I think, what
Wonderful.
my dad wanted.
How sweet. So, speaking of NLS Bangalore, can you share some fond experiences from your college times? And also, if you could tell us, what are you most grateful for?
So I mean, NLS was, it had its ups and downs, but I think it was a very unique experience. The college had a sort of liberal arts, very open culture, and I think that exposure to that culture, biggest sort of positive takeaway that I would say um, from that. And the people I met, I mean, uh, if I had to look back fondly on time at my time in NLS, I think it's the people I met. I got exposed to people who were so driven and so ambitious, and who they they were passionate about the things that they wanted to do with their career, and that was great for someone like me who wasn't that driven, especially because I ended up in law school and I didn't want to do. So that culture was great. It was a great experience. I met a lot of wonderful people, and as it turned out, that network of people that you meet is also such a huge plays such a huge role in your life going forward. So yeah.
It's so rightly said. We've heard so much about the close network and the community that NLS is known for, and it goes on for many many years. And it's
Many
beautiful. And
years.
how I wish other colleges had like a similar alumni base where you could just reach out and seek help. And I'm so glad that that still prevails at NLS. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So, during those days, I think the so-called trend was, out of college, just go get a job at a law firm, right? Majority of
Yeah.
kids, I think I think times have changed where in-house is also considered at par, but back in the days, the trend primarily was, law firm is the place to go to after graduation. You, on the other hand, chose an in-house role immediately after college. So, was that an intentional decision?
It was an intentional decision. While in college, we were encouraged to intern. And so I tried to get internships in as many types of internships as I could. So I did litigation, I did in-house, and I interned with law firm, I interned at AZB. And I realized by my fourth year that I am not cut out for law firm culture. Uh, the the degree of stress and the something that comes from having client facing roles, it's not about being a law firm, not it's about being client facing, and I just could not, I was not the right person for that kind of role, and I realized that very early on. And I also had this young people perspective on work life balance. So I was very like, oh, I want time, like time se office se nikalna hai. Um, so I chose in-house, and in fact, I interned at ICICI, and that's where I ended up at my first job as well. Um, and it was that was also eye-opening because you have certain ideas about what it's going to be like, but it wasn't exactly like that. But yeah, I was very clear that law firm is definitely not for me.
And I'm glad you got that clarity very early on. A
Yeah.
lot of us realized it much later. So yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
I think
See,
that that's why
most people
internships are so crucial for that reason, right? That you need to give yourself that, like, don't, like, I feel like a lot of people, they're building their CV in a particular way because that's what firms want to see, whatever, but they're depriving themselves of that opportunity to explore all their options. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, fair. That's a good piece of advice. So, speaking of ICICI, so before you moved away from the practice of law, you in fact worked in the in-house team of ICICI and SR. Why don't you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the work that you handled and how was your experience working in-house in both these organizations?
So I actually I was lucky to get a lot of varied experiences at ICICI. I did two roles in my short time there. I started out in structured finance, and that was very interesting because there was plain vanilla lending, and then there was structured finance, which looked at sort of complicated structures and FEMA issues and everything. So it's very interesting work, and then at that time, Pramodra was the legal head, and he kind of set up the system where he used to reshuffle the team. And in one of the reshuffles, I ended up as his executive assistant. So I switched from my role as from structured finance and I moved to that role. And that was an amazing role because of the kind of exposure. I was a management trainee at that point of time. And I was working directly with the legal head. And Pramod was very patient and very, he explained so much stuff. I got to learn things and get a bird's eye view on things that I wouldn't have encountered for years in the profession. So that was really great. Um, but uh, I it was a demanding job because, like I said, I was a management trainee and I was reporting to the legal head. So that has its own pressures, and you're very young for that role. So, and structured finance was also one of the more demanding teams in even in that space. Um, so it was so then I made the decision to shift and I shifted to SR. And I was doing financing in ICICI. I was doing financing in SR, but on the borrower side. So again, the interesting side was I got to sit on both sides of the table, negotiate on both sides. That helped build some skills. Um, and SR was closer to the whole work-life balance thing that I had envisaged.
The one that you
And
anticipated back in college.
yeah, and again, because it was such a big company, you still got a lot of exposure in time because there was so many avenues of work. I mean, there was oil, steel, and all of that, but there was also SR owns time out. So, also got to know about media laws. So that's one of the things about in-house is that your exposures can be more varied and is more detailed than just the law itself, right? You also get to see the commercial aspect of it. And I think that was one of the benefits of doing in-house in both ICICI and SR. But yeah, then financing for that much time, and I found it got repetitive. So then I decided that I think this is something that I can't continue with on a day-to-day basis. It just there was a lot of learning, but the day-to-day practice of it got repetitive for me.
Would you have, since you have a decent amount of experience in-house, would you have any advice for lawyers who are specifically looking for in-house roles? So, one is busting some myths, but other thing is, are there any specific skill sets that are expected, when you're moving into an in-house role?
So I think an in-house role is, it requires a certain skill set in terms of people management, which I feel like a law firm role doesn't require that much. As in, there is in a law firm you are doing a client-facing role, and obviously you have to manage the client. But for especially at a junior level, you're not expected to do that much client management. But in an in-house role, you end up doing a lot of people management because especially large organizations are very structured. You'll have like a risk and an business group and a risk group and an operations group, and deal making happens with all of these people sort of on board. And if you are, even if you're at a junior level, you're expected to manage your colleagues in other departments as well, and to sort of interact with them and make the deal happen. So I think that role or that skill set comes into play more in-house. And that's something that, if that's something you're good at, you can really kind of make a mark for yourself. And I think decision making, there is more decision making in an in-house role, I feel, at a lower level. Because, again, when you're in a law firm, you can make the deal happen and you can work on documents and you're working on a lot of like research and writing. But in an in-house role, from an early on level, you have to do some kind of decision making, which only increases as you grow. Whether or not you need an opinion for this, whether or not you should consult this particular firm. You kind of get involved in those decisions early on. So I think there is more decision making at a earlier stage in-house.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, fun fact, you quit your job at SR without a plan. Now that's exciting. Yeah. Tell us what was going on in your mind back then, and also what did you do next?
So it was I mean, it sounds like an impulsive decision, but it was not fully impulsive. It was a little impulsive. So one of the things is that even though I ended up in the law by accident, etc., but I had this thing drilled into my mind with my parents that whatever you're doing, you have to give your 100%. And when I started feeling like things are becoming repetitive and I'm not, I felt like because I'm losing interest, I'm not giving my 100%. And I felt like that's not fair to me. It's not fair to my employer. It's not even fair to my team, right? You work in a team and it's kind of like um, everybody has to be there doing their best. So when I started getting that feeling, I just decided that it's time to quit. Because who knows? I don't even know what I want to do next for sure. Like if it's not, I know not this, but you know, what's the alternative? And so I didn't want to get into that process of like searching for a job and then being in this half-heartedly. I just couldn't reconcile that with myself, so I quit. But I also had the privilege of being able to do that. At that time, I was in Bombay. I was living with my parents, so I didn't have to pay rent. And that's a game changer in Bombay, not having to pay rent. So I had the privilege of being able to do that. Um, and I think at that time, what I was thinking is really to sort of find alternatives, but within the law. I hadn't really thought that I'll do something outside law, but more because it was, I was thinking I've been doing financing for a while, so maybe I'll see if there's something else I can do in-house. And I started interviewing as well in places with that sort of in mind. But I didn't have direction. And luckily for me, this is where the network that I was referring to is helpful, is that one of my batchmates, actually a couple of my batchmates had just started working at Rainmaker in the Milo team. So at that time, Rainmaker and Milo were an organization, and Milo was just sort of starting to take off in a big way. And they told me about Milo and what they're doing and how they're looking to make, courses on subjects which are not the practical aspect of which is not taught in law school. And they were looking for people who had work experience in these fields. So I thought that was very interesting. And then I met the founder, Nikhil, who was handling Milo at that time, and which was a very convincing conversation. I was very quickly convinced that this is a good idea. So I went on board with Milo as faculty to create online courses for commercial law. So banking and finance, securities, drafting of commercial contracts. And I was, again, I was very excited by that opportunity because there was, this realization that, yeah, none of this stuff is taught in law school. When I went into ICICI, I remember some of my batchmates had taken a course in financing, which a UK law firm had come and done as a credit course in our 5th year. And I remember at that time, I was like, oh my God, what is this course? Like, it's not even, like, why are you doing it? And then I had to call them and say, can you give me your course material? Because I had no other way of knowing what to do. So this gap was definitely there. And so to be able to fill that gap and help out, law students who are so lost, especially with corporate law, which is just this spoken of in this generic way. And then you get to a corporate law firm and you're like, ye bhi hai. You can do this also. Like, so that was a very exciting opportunity. And there, one of the interesting things that I got engaged with is the simplification of law. Explaining all of these very esoteric areas of law, like securities law and everything, in a simple way, so that people are not held back, but because they don't have access to a national law school or a tier 1 college, right? So that was a very interesting opportunity. And then I learned a lot. My skill set was expanded. I learned how to make videos. I learned about online content. I learned about
Wow.
designing courses. And so there was a lot of learning.
A lot of learnings, and yeah, nobody was doing it uh,
Yeah.
back in the day, and now look at it. Every online courses are, I think, the most sought out things on the internet. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean at that time I remember like we used to have these meetings and I was finding out about Coursera and all of this at that time. I was like, what is Udemy doing? What is Coursera doing? And it seemed like a very new and exciting world of things which you don't even hear about in
Yeah.
a conventional thing. So it was very interesting.
Wonderful. So you worked at Milo for around 3 years, and then you picked up a very interesting role with LexStart, which is a legal tech company supporting the startup ecosystem. Again, it sounds
Yeah.
very interesting, and I just want to know, what did your role entail? Considering you've already done like varied kind of, you've handled
Yeah.
varied kind of mandates before that.
So I had the option of doing a conventional role, which is they were looking for somebody. They do a lot of VC deals with
Mm-hmm.
startups and VCs, and they were looking for someone to come in as an associate for that. Um, so that was one opening, and the other opening was a basically like a EA role to the founder, where not only do you support with the VC deals firm aspect of it, but Lexstart had a tech legal arm, and they were building tech solutions for startups, legal tech solutions for startups, and so to also help with that. And given my tendencies, I chose the latter. So that was again very interesting. And because I had just been in Milo and I had seen this whole, legal tech thing was just sort of coming up, online courses, and fundraising was something that we spoke about a lot even in Milo. So startups and all of this was something I just become sort of exposed to while I was in Milo, and then the opportunity to sort of explore this world came through with Lexstart. And again, so much learning. In fact, I started out sort of as EA to the founder, and I ended up as product manager for the legal tech
Wow.
role. So I kind of just completely abandoned the VC thing, the law part completely. And yeah, so because they were doing very interesting things. There was a lot of like document building and ESOP creation through a tech solution, um, uh, creating agreements to tech, um, building cap tables, creating cap table calculators, which are just like tech solutions. And there again, so my colleagues were the software developers and the graphic designers and the UI UX people. So it was the kind of exposure that I wouldn't have been able to get in any conventional role. And so yeah, that worked out very well. And at
Fantastic.
that time, by that time, I'd had my daughter. So Nextart also allowed me to do this flexible work thing. So it was great.
It sounds only so interesting. Yeah, wonderful. So, you now work as the editorial lead at Nyay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the organization and also about what do you love about working at Nyay and what does your role entail here?
Sure. So, Nyaya is actually it's an initiative which was conceived by Rohini Nilikani. It's housed at the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, uh, and they are doing work which squarely falls into this thing that I discovered when I reached my law, which is the simplification of law. So, Nyaya's aim is to provide simple, actionable, reliable, authoritative legal information to citizens. The idea is that in your day-to-day life, you encounter the law, and not everyone, in fact, not even lawyers sometimes are sure how to tackle those things that they encounter in their day-to-day life, right? Like how to file a police complaint, what how do you adopt a child, right? Like these are just things which are part of your life and part of the law, and uh, you need easy, understandable information about it, because how do you access these rights that you have as a citizen if you don't even understand what the law says? So a very close friend of mine was starting out at Nyaya, and she sort of envisaged this role for me because of my work experience. And she said, you're so perfectly suited to it because this whole simplification of the law thing is something that you've
You
been sort of now
mastered it
working
by
on
then.
for, yeah, also for a few years. So I said, yeah, I mean, this is great because also, you know, whenever people think of the law, they always think of like text, just a lot of text, a lot of reading. So changing that around, presenting it in different ways, making it more accessible to people. That's and the other thing is that right now the law is primarily for people who can read and write English in terms of
Yes.
accessibility. So what Nyaya is doing, which is again so fantastic, is that they're providing this information in English, Hindi, Kannada, and now we're trying to expand to other languages as well. And uh, that I feel is like really the need of the hour. In fact, if I had to say right now, we're going through this sort of phase which where I'm really glad I joined because when the COVID pandemic started, it kind of highlighted to us how much these things are a requirement, especially now that it's moving to tier two cities, to villages. Um, that people have a lot of questions about how to tackle like lockdown. What do you do if your vaccination certificate has an error in it? All of these things, right? And we realized because this is the kind of work that Nyaya does, that this is something where we can really help. So we've actually started a legal helpline, which works off WhatsApp because WhatsApp is so accessible all across the country. So basically, if you have a question, you're encountering a problem, you send a WhatsApp message to our number, and we have got over 170 volunteers
Wow.
now. Experienced lawyers have signed up. People who are all over the country, like 25, across 25 states, we have volunteers. And so we have practicing lawyers, we have law students who can do research, etc., who volunteered to help out with this helpline. And people can submit their questions in English and Hindi, Kannada. We're doing Bengali, Odia, Gujarati, and we're trying to expand to other languages as well. Uh, and so this helpline is really sort of, expanding the role that Nyaya had envisaged for herself, and that it's just to help out people with these small questions, that you encounter. Because in a person's life, big picture things that happen with the law aren't that many. But on a day-to-day basis, you have these kind of questions. Like, what happens if I go out in lockdown? Right? What are my rights? What am I allowed to do? Um, a lot of people are stuck in situations in lockdown, like victims of domestic violence. How do they access? Who can they reach out to? What are the phone numbers you can call? This kind of information, making it available easily. And WhatsApp is the medium of communication for a large part of our country now. So, sort of working on that. I mean, it's a great experience so far.
I think it's a really fantastic initiative, especially the the COVID resource aspect of it, and it's fantastic that you have the number of volunteers that you just mentioned about. The the content is multilingual, which is brilliant because you can then go beyond just the tier one cities and
Yeah,
actually reach out to those who actually need more help than people perhaps in tier one cities. So I'm sure for you it must be really exciting and something so
it is.
different than
It
what
is.
you've done so far. But it's
Absolutely.
also
I mean,
amazing. Sorry.
sorry. I was saying
Please.
we've managed to answer like 300 plus questions already,
Wow.
across 15 states. So it's been I think apart from the workplace, like it's personally rewarding to be able to make that kind of impact. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's what is so beautiful is, um, each milestone in your professional career, from work, be it, working in house to my law to, Lex Start, it's just led you to to Nyaya, where you're actually doing, and it's more or like a culmination of the work that you've done before. And here
Yeah,
it's more
absolutely.
people oriented because you're actually giving back to society by just simplifying the laws, which is so beautiful. And one doesn't have to always seek a lawyer to understand the basics. We usually Google these things,
Yeah.
but at least thanks to this initiative, we can reach out to. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, is it what?
There is an authorized place where one can go and actually access, law in basic simple terms. So fantastic, Diksha. What's interesting is you also have another initiative of your own, which is called Start Reading, primarily to inculcate reading habits in children.
Yeah.
Tell us when and why did you start this initiative?
So this is a bit of a pet project for me, actually, but I've not dedicated a lot of time to it so far. So I started this just after I left my law. Um, when I've always felt like, this is something that needs attention, which is just the number of kids who read, and given the ubiquitous of screens everywhere, they're just everywhere. There's not enough reading happening, and I feel like it's such a great hobby. It's such a great personality building. Just like I love reading. It's a great source of comfort for me too, that I can go back turn to a book whenever I want. And I feel like a lot of my learning has come out of books. A lot of my entertainment has come out of books. So I feel like this is something, sort of opportunity that every child needs. Um, but I also feel like it needs a little bit of a push. You can't leave it to schools. You can't leave it to like uh, if parents don't have time, and that's understandable. Like it's often, especially in two-income households, people don't always have time, and not everybody who, if someone doesn't already have a reading habit, it's hard for them to inculcate it in their kids. And but it's a very aspirational thing. I mean, most people I know who have kids are always like, I wish my child read. I wish. So I feel like this is something that it's just everybody thinks it's a good thing. It should be there, but people aren't sure how to go about it. And I had a lot of ideas on this front, and so I thought I'll do something about it. And also I generally like kids, so that's a huge requirement. I get along with kids very well, so I thought this is something where like you need someone to spend time with your kid and talk to them about reading and read with them and like introduce them to new things which are related to their interests or related to the last book they read. So again, it's like skill set. I even now sometimes read young adult books and sometimes kids books also. Like I read grown up books and all kinds. So I felt like this is something that maybe I could do, which might actually help more kids get into reading. Um, but shortly after that, I mean, I started working again, and I had my daughter. So the amount of time that this would have required, I wasn't able to sort of really give effect to that. I did do it actually with one child. I did start with her. Um, but yeah, I didn't think so. Now I've been trying out my ideas on my daughter, basically. And
She's going to be like,
um,
when she grows older, she's like, I was the pet project where she would experiment all her ideas on.
that's true. But the good thing is that it's sort of like had results. So I have my daughter's 4.5 now. She reads at a 8-year-old reading level. She reads Enid Blyton. She reads full books. Like so, I feel like there is proof of concept. So yeah, this is not something I've kind of given up on. So even though I'm not actively doing it. I do put out tips and share articles, share reading lists and all on my Facebook. I have a Facebook page for Start Reading, so I do that.
Brilliant. What, according to you, are your driving factors in life?
That's a tough question. That is a tough question for someone like me because I feel like I have sort of taken a very relaxed approach. I mean, I met a lot of, driven people, but I wasn't that driven. But I do feel there are some things that are important to me. So one is that I have this great need to be productive. I feel like whatever you're doing, whether it's for your work or you're doing it as a pet project or you're doing it, well, you to be able to create something or make something of your day, right? Let alone literally, like every day, to be productive, to have done something that was helpful, and in order to do that, to sort of recognize your skills and use them for a positive impact. I think for me it's that. Like there are some things I'm not good at all, and then there are some things I am good at. And I feel like if there's something I am good at, and I can do something positive with it, I should. So I think that's kind of our approach, all of this.
Productivity. That's fantastic. And my last question to you is your advice to law students and lawyers who may not be so driven when it comes to the practice of law and would want to consider a career change. Any advice that you would like to give?
Advice is very tricky because it's very people specific. But to people who are uncertain, and since I've been in that position, I think what I would say is, when you're looking for a change in your life or in your career or otherwise, um, you should spend some time thinking about it and identify what you want from the change. And that has two parts. One is what you don't want, which is often what drives people to decide that this is not what I'm doing. But the other is what you do want. And I feel like whatever decision you are making, you should have answers to both those questions. So that the next step that you take uh, gives you what you do want, right? So I think that's really the
Very, very well
big thing.
put. Thank you so much, Diksha, for sharing that. That
Thank you.
brings us to the end of the chat. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we had a lovely time with you. I hope
I
you
had a great time
had.
chatting with you. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you everyone for joining us live. Before we sign off, just a quick announcement. Unsuited is back, and this Sunday at 5 p.m., we have Preeti Suri and Sandhya Vishal joining us for our Unsuited series. Don't forget to tune in at 5 p.m. on our YouTube channel called Unsuited the Series. It's going to be a very interesting conversation because we'll be deep diving into the professional challenges both these ladies faced. We'll also dive into how bullying at workplace helped them become better managers, and also what future of workforce entails, post the COVID world. So don't forget to tune in at 5 p.m. and I shall see you next week. Thank you once again, Diksha, and have a great
Thank
weekend.
you. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.